I would like to thank you all for coming, and somehow I actually noticed that when I say to people, or when we see the word education in the topic of presentation, we get a bit scared. And I'm glad that you didn't. And as a little disclaimer, I would like to say that this presentation is not going to be only about education. It's going to be, well, I would say directly translating to leadership in your daily work and in the company that you are in. So again, thank you for coming. And before I forgot, if you have any questions, you should use Slido. So slide.do, and then you connect there with the code buildstuff 2019. And you can post any questions that are interesting for you there, and we will answer them after the presentation. And we would like to start this presentation a bit differently because we want it to be interactive. And for that, we are going to be using Kahoots. For those who doesn't know how Kahoots work, you will be presented with a question. You will have multiple answers, and the person who will answer correctly fastest will win something. And the first one is not going to be for the prize, but we want to understand who is right now in the audience so that we could shape our presentation a bit better for you. So I'll present you with the question right now. So you have to go either to kahoot.it or you have to download the Kahoot application, and please do that because we will have 3 more of those. And then you have to enter this code. But I see people are joining, so probably you have used it. Is there still anyone trying to join? Should I wait? Yes? All right, so 10 more seconds and we go. And now, you know, I will not have to count how many participated because I see the number, so that's also cool. All right, so the question is here. And there is only one correct answer. All right, so we can see that most of you are developers, and there are only 3 people who are not related to IT. All right. So again, we are going to be using this Kahoot a couple more times, so don't delete the application, or if you are in the web, don't log out. And I would like to begin with this quote. It's from great presenter Andrew Clymer, and once he said that when you understand how things work under the covers, you generally don't do stupid things. And this is my motto when I'm teaching in university, because there are 2 reasons, actually. So if we take a look at IT market at the moment, we can see that IT market is very demanding, and it needs a lot of people, and IT market needs those people to do stuff, and to do stuff efficiently. And then if we take a look at the people who are coming to this IT market, the young people, they are from this so-called Generation Z. And the main thing about them is that we don't really remember a world without a phone or Google, and we have this natural ability to find information very fast, but we are not really the patient ones. So we all know that probably the best place to hide a dead person is in the second page of Google results, because no one goes there. And when we put those two together, then what do we get? We get IT market who absorbs people and trains them to do stuff, and we have young people who can do that stuff, but don't really want to dig very deep. So we learn how to do things, but not really understanding them. And I'm not saying that this is the case for all IT companies, but I really seen something like that. And then if this happens, then those beautiful creatures are born, coding monkeys. So IT company is pretty happy because we get their stuff done. It is efficient. But then when the next person comes to either modify, extend, or support the code, then usually this happens. And in university, we are trying to achieve that there would be less people like that. And actually, with this Generation Z, there is a very great potential, and we are trying to enable the characteristics that we have. So shortly about me, I am Donatas Kimutis, and at the moment, I'm Chief .NET Developer in Danske Bank. I'm also a co-founder with Mantas Marcinkus of IT Taburete, podcast that we are doing about IT in Lithuanian language. I would like to say that at my free time, I'm lecturer at Vilnius University because I'm working there only as a part-time, and most of the time I'm preparing, well, basically on my free time. And then as well, I love to play and watch basketball. I love movies, but especially Marvel movies. And from time to time, I like to ride my motorcycle.
All right. Hello. Thanks for waiting for me getting mic'd up. A little about me. I'm a professional of 13 years, and for 5 of them, I'm an employer, meaning I'm working as a manager, creating teams and multiple teams and hiring lots of people. I counted at some point that I probably have done more than 600 job interviews, a lot of them for IT developers as well. Some of them very junior, like Donatas over here. And I hired approximately around 70 people, most of them to the Danske Bank. When we were creating this course with Donatas, we thought we should do one brave thing, change the educational model that we have, and basically just do that one brave thing today, and then run like hell. After we did these things in university, actually it involved some of the running, because our fellow lecturers were not that happy that students of our course are spending too much time on home assignments that we have and don't spend time on their assignments. So we keep running. This is me and my son. He's 3.5. I have no idea how his education will look like, because he's living in the world. He's from, not from Generation Z, he's from glass generation. Meaning that he was born into the world where there were these glass devices that most of you have now in your hands, like a lot of our students in our lectures. So we're not going to talk about future students like my son, but we're going to talk about the ones that are sitting in our class in the 2nd grade, meaning they are approximately 20 years old. As I said, I do 2 things. One, I'm working as an employee, as a manager in Danske Bank. I also teach in university together with Donatas. And at some point I figured maybe it would be a good idea to write down what I look for when hiring people. And these are the 5 things that came down on that list. First thing, I believe it's one of the most important ones, is that I want people in my teams who are able to learn fast. I don't care if you have a huge knowledge already. What I care for is that you're able to obtain new knowledge fastly. Because in IT world, everything is developing so rapidly, new frameworks, new rules, and etc., etc. You have to be able to adapt very fast. Second thing is somewhat softish, and there's a saying, especially from old farts like me, that young people are not that accountable and not that reliable. So I actually look for accountability and reliability. Then the third thing is actually creativity. What we do as employees all the time, if you're doing some sort of intellectual work, basically we solve problems. And there's two ways of solving problems. One is pretty much standard, inside the box, and then there's other one, the creative one, solving problems outside the box. So I look for that when hiring people as well. The fourth thing is being open-minded. So whenever you are presented bad news or something that contradicts your beliefs, you are not in my face, but you are asking validating questions and having a discussion. And the last one, since it's a bit about education, I want correct education. What does it mean? It means that I could care less what is written in your diploma. I enjoy when there's a .NET developer in the interview and he has a certification saying certified C# professional or something like that. I know everything what is in that certification. So then the one or two questions comes up and I can check really easily if that certification was obtained by using exam dumps or was it obtained by learning things. So when you look for these 5 things, you are looking pretty much for unicorns. And then we figured, okay, if we are looking for unicorns at work and we are working at university, maybe we could shift our course to actually grow the young generation that we could hire after. However, that is easier said than done. This is me and my friend this March climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, one of the 7 summits in the world. I think it was 6 a.m. in the morning after 6 hours of climb after waking up at midnight. That was a lot, and by the way, that involved 7 days climb in total. That was a lot easier climbing that mountain than actually trying to change educational model from standard to something a bit different. Why? Because we had a guide on that mountain, and that guide always took our pulse, always took our oxygen levels. He told us when to eat, when to rest, when to walk faster, when to walk slower, and so on and so on. We didn't have that guidance when changing the course in university. A little bit about generations. There's a lost generation, greatest generation, silent generation. These are old ones. Then there's baby boomers, the ones who were born after Second World War. Then there's Generation X, millennials, and now we are talking about Gen Z and Generation Glass. So Generation Glass is my son, and Gen Z are the ones that are sitting in our class. What peculiarities do these Generation Z people have? First of all, they are innovative. How come? I checked recently, I believe there's approximately 2,000 new apps put into Google Play Store every day. So meaning they are growing up in the world where new things are getting created and very fast, rapidly, and a lot. Second thing is they are result-oriented. Third thing is they are internet learners. I just asked, and I see a couple of my former students, I don't remember if it was you who I asked, but I asked, do you remember the world without Google? And most of them said no. Well, one said yes, but then we figured that he used Alta Vista. They want to change the world. I believe there is a lot of focus on environment and things like that. Hell, my son has used more environmental friendly straws when drinking drinks than the plastic ones. Same applies to Gen Z. And by 2020, pretty much every student in our class is Generation Z representative. This is how our class looks like. Now I'm trying to figure out if some of the students are in the picture, because I don't believe we asked for your permission to go. Sorry about that. If you notice a few things about the picture, the most striking one, at least for me, is that pretty much half of them have their eyes locked on their phone. So then we figured with Donatas, what should we do? Do we want to eliminate those phones in the class, or do we want to leverage that? Do we want the technology that is natural for the students to be a disabler, or do we want that to be an enabler?
So, and in university, our thing that we are teaching is called Applied Object-Oriented Programming. And basically, I see that not all of you are students here, so I'll remind you a bit about how it works. So we have theory lecture each week, and there is around 100 to 120 people in the course. And then each week, those students are having practice lectures. And I guess that we have 5 or 6 practice lecturers, so they are split into smaller groups. And then in those practice lectures, they are divided into teams. And those teams are consisted of 3, 4, or 5 people, and that depends on the group size. So this is more or less how it is structured and how we are teaching, we are going to tell next. But basically, for you to understand a bit more what we are teaching, it is, well, we are using a .NET framework for teaching that. And we are not focusing that much on the very basics, I would say. And before students have the Java course in which we go through a theory. And in our course, we try to hammer the nail of this objective-oriented programming knowledge by providing the real-world examples. And basically, instead of teaching is triangle a shape, to teach them how to use dependency injection and why you should use it, what are the benefits of it. And as Vytautas already mentioned with this courage slide, that our course is actually more like a moonshot. And what is a moonshot? Moonshot basically is a thing that is believed impossible to do. And we started doing that 3 years ago. So now we are in the process. And now we are going to talk about 5 reasons why we believe that it is worth to do it and how we are doing it. And I would like to start with an experiment. And for that, I need one volunteer. So, yeah. All right. So there are 2 ways to write if statement. Of course, there are more, but on the screen, there are 2 ways. So one, A, is with curly brackets. Another one is without. So now imagine that you will have to code your entire life choosing only one of this style. Which one do you choose, A or B?
Sadly, A. I would choose, well, B is simpler. Maybe if brackets do something else, then just wrap the body, then maybe there will be some other reason.
Hmm?
No, B looks simpler to understand and learn, probably.
So you choose B?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So experiment isn't over. Now I would like to team you up with this person and this person. And now you're actually a team. So now you have up to 1 minute to decide what coding style will you be using in your team for the rest of your life, and you have all to agree on that. Hmm?
So, yeah, I would vote for A. Well, I just imagine that if the rest of my life there would be more code probably inside those brackets, like how I will handle it with B.
So maybe in the syntax, it depends on what the brackets do, you know.
30 seconds left.
Like what was saying, B looks clearer, but with A you do not use particular errors, because with B you can add a new line of code And
Maybe lines does something. You don't know what maybe brackets are there just only to wrap.
Country don't do anything. The only problem will be that we add a new
What
line.
language is it? Do you know?
Yeah.
10 seconds.
I program in another language, and that might matter differently.
They don't matter. Like,
5 seconds.
only in future.
3, 2, 1. All right, that's it. So what did you choose? So did you came up with something or no?
No.
No. And you had 1 minute. And I asked you alone to choose. You took like 10-ish seconds to choose, maybe a bit more. But the main idea under this is a pretty simple example, and this is not a very big decision to make. But when you are in the team, it is much more difficult to make this decision. Because you have to communicate, and we all know that the communication is the key part in the good teamwork. And even if there is this communication, we all know this old game, broken phone, when you tell someone one thing and then it turns out to be completely another. So this is why we decided to use teamwork and divide students into teams instead of giving them individual work. Because when you are doing individual work, it seems a bit easier in the beginning. You can basically make your mind faster and do things faster, but when you are in the team, in the beginning you struggle. And we saw this struggle a bit now. But after some time you get into the rhythm, and actually you can learn from yourselves, you can deliver much more. And another thing is, as Vytautas mentioned, I guess, we are not working only in IT. In university, we are also working in IT. And we see that most of the times, those young people who are coming from university, they have pretty good technical knowledge. So we can actually code. But what we are lacking of is this group dynamics, so teamwork. And some of them might be too shy to express their opinions. Some might be too aggressive because, well, they are used to be alone and they are used to go by their knowledge. So we think that this is one of the key points. And now, another Kahoot. So let me just turn it on. And now this Kahoot is going to be for the prize. So there are going to be 2 prizes. For this one, you are going to get one of them. And Vytautas cannot participate. You are not going to get prize. Is anyone else joining? No? Yes? Five seconds. So at this time, it's really only one correct answer. All right. So I'm not going to explain the answer, but the winner is Elvis P. But you are still not a winner. To actually win this, you need now to explain to everyone the correct answer, and if it is really the correct answer, then you are the winner.
So I did it from the other side. So straight into 5 from 5. So I did it from another way, so that's my mistake. But just I thought about knowing that, yeah, I chose the wrong one, but it's correct.
Okay, so sorry, then you don't get the prize. Okay. So then the second part is, second one is Marius. Can you explain the answer?
Well, 55 divided by 5 is 7, you can divide 7 by 5.
But you chose one.
Yeah, you chose 1, so you divide 1 time, and 7 is not dividable.
But the question is subtract, so you don't get the prize either. So now Lenore.
When you can only once subtract 5 from 25, because after one time you will have 30.
Yes, and that is correct. So you get the prize now. And the prize is, of course, IT Taburete t-shirt, so there you go.
It's a world-famous podcast.
It's very, very popular. All right, so with this Kahoot, actually, it is something that we are doing in our lecture. It wasn't only for fun. And the main point is that, well, you now didn't hear this answer from me, that from 35 you can subtract 5 only one time, because afterwards it's going to be only 30. But you heard it from Danguola. And that is coming, you know, then everyone is teaching everyone. And this is what we are encouraging in our classroom as well.
To remain on religious theme, we had a priest here, and then we have some priest over there. As a lecturers, we do basically 2 classes. One is theory, where there's introduction to new concepts and so on and so on. And then there's practice lectures, where students are actually doing their homework, and then they come to class, and then they present, and then we evaluate them. If you have 12 students in your class, and you have 90 minutes, you divide that, and you get approximately 7 minutes. Then it means, as a lecturer, you have 7 minutes of time to evaluate what student has been doing for a week. So 7 minutes to evaluate the work of 7 days. It took us some time to realize that that would be some sort of spontaneous or subjective evaluation. A bit like when you come to the priest and you say, I did this sin and that sin, and God forgive me. And then priest says, okay, 7 Holy Marys. But the 7 Holy Marys is a bit random as well. How can the priest realistically know what you have been doing as sins for a year or however long you have been to the priest previous time? So the third reason was we wanted to do something in the course that we would evaluate students or their homeworks a lot more objectively than it usually is. The fourth thing is we said, okay, what is the most powerful tool in everyday work? To my belief, the most powerful tool is feedback.
Not Visual Studio?
Even with ReSharper. The most powerful tool is feedback, because all of us have subjective biases. We tend to believe what's right and what's wrong based on our previous beliefs. We have confirmation bias that when something is presented to us, if we want to confirm it one or the other way, that will happen. So instead of asking for students for feedback only after the semester and have a year-long turnaround how our course was, we use a tool called Socrative, where we ask students for feedback every 3 lectures or so. When I did it for the first time, I was sweating almost as much as when I was getting married. It's a bit of a challenging thing to send out a survey to 100 students anonymously and then ask to write a mark to you as a lecturer on a scale from 1 to 10. You sweat your pants that it will be 3. So we do that. And then the last thing, as I said, when hiring, I look for people who would be able to learn fast. So instead of teaching students specific technology or only specific technology, we try to facilitate how to learn. So basically we teach the skill of learning. I think that's a new phrase, teach the skill of learning. So in a nutshell, what we do in this course, we divide students into groups of 5. Each of these groups gets one of the 3 tasks to do throughout the full semester. We make sure that students buy into the task, meaning the task is selected to be innovative and creative and so on and so on. Third thing that we do, there's a lot that students do throughout the course that we don't teach. That is exactly the part where we teach how to learn. So students go back home and then they research with this native skill of Googling how to do certain things that wasn't told in the theory lecture. Then the fourth thing is basically all the code that students write is on GitHub and it's publicly available, so each of these groups are able to look into the other group, so they are not reinventing the bike altogether 20 times, but they can look into what others have found out. And the last thing, in practice lecture, there's 3 groups of students, and then they rotate. So the first group comes on stage, they present what they did in the week. Then the other 2 groups are listening in and collecting the knowledge, asking the questions, and then they rotate 3 times. When we presented this to the students, I believe it was 2.5 years ago, a lot of faces in the classroom looked like this. And there was dead silence and tumbleweeds rolling, and you know, I asked, what the hell, why are you so silent? Couple of students kind of found the courage to say, we are afraid. We're afraid that we will not be able to code something that you don't teach. But I believe we succeeded.
And now it's my part, and I'm a Kahoot person, so let's do it one more time. And this is where the second prize goes. So since Vytautas started talking about applications that our students are doing, this Kahoot will consist of 4 questions, and those questions are basically going to be ideas of an applications, and then you will have to guess either it's created by our students or not a chance. And this time you will not have to explain the correct answer. So. Five seconds. All right, so the correct answer for this was that it was our students who created this application. And I think we should be able to score now. So Davidas is the one who is winning right now, and I would like to say that speed matters here. So if you read the answer here and if you answer correctly, but you are not the first one, then you get less points. Now let's move on to the second one. All right, so I'm really glad that there are 12 people who think that the students did it, but we didn't. So
Not yet.
not yet. And Davidas is still the first one, but Savanoris is, and Gabby is very close. The third one. So this was a close one, but actually this was done by our students. And Davidas is still winning, but now we have on fire EGL. And now the last question, so I guess the fastest of those 3 or maybe even 4 people will take the t-shirt. And let's not take a look at those. And the winner is Davidas. Catch. Whoop. Good job.
And it's not coincidence that he's one of the former students.
But that's fine. So the basic idea of this Kahoot was to give you an understanding of what type of applications our students are doing. And as Vytautas said, that sometimes in the beginning, we are pretty scared that we will not be able to do it. And the transformation from this scariness of not being able to do it to motivation and seeing the burning in their eyes to do it and to do it in a very fancy way is really nice to watch. And these are the 2 applications that were the winning ones in 2 years that we did it. So the price comparison engine and the missing people search. And actually Davidas did the missing people search, so that's why he knew. And the most enjoying part for me is that even after our course ends, students still continues to work on those applications. And then how do we achieve that? Because we need to figure out these applications. And we came up with 2 ingredients that has to be in each application that we give to students. So basically it has to be a relevant application. Something that you see yourself using or something that you see that a world is missing, and it has to be innovative. So either this application should not be existing, or if it does exist, maybe your application can be much, much better because the current one is not really good. And we are actually spending a great amount of time and effort together with Vytautas and other practice lecturers during the summer, trying to find out those applications, because it is not that easy, because as Vytautas mentioned, there are around 2,000 new applications each day uploaded to Google Store.
Think about this. You teach something, basically we teach applied object-oriented programming, in the theory lecture. But then students go home and then they build applications which does a lot more than what we teach. They use machine learning, they use object recognition in images and so on and so on. And then it's a freakingly terrifying experience. You sit in this practice lecture as a lecturer, and then you have to evaluate students, the work that they did, which half of that you plainly don't understand. So there's no way you can objectively evaluate what students have done. So we figured instead of guessing and subjectively evaluating students or getting better, which we were too lazy to be, we said let's do self-evaluation. So this is a picture of a board in a practice lecture. This is one team doing the app called Who's That? The second one, short vision. The third one, virtual library. And basically, if you are in a group of 4, then you get 5 points that you can give to your group mates. You can assign all of them to yourself, but that will be short-lived because you will have to repeat the same exercise every week, 16 times in a row. So you can play for your ego only once because later it will bite you in the ass. And then students are actually coming one by one, and let's say it's Marius, he came in, said, I worked this week and I delivered results for 1.5, then 1.5 for this guy, then 0.5 for this guy, and 1.5 for this guy. Then you add those up, you get 7.5, 5, 3.5, and 4. Because when doing the group work, there's nobody better to evaluate what your group mates did than the group mates themselves. So that's how we do the evaluation. In 2.5 years, it appeared only once in my practice lecture that students tried to cheat. They tried to say, we did equal, and then 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I said, fine, darlings, if you don't want to play by these rules, I will evaluate you. Oh, okay, okay, we are deleting, and then they evaluated as they're supposed to. A bit of summary, how our class is holding up. After we did these changes, lecture attendance, which is not mandatory, increased up to 80%. Practice attendance as well, it's not mandatory, but it's basically attended 100% because nobody wants to get evaluated when they are not present. Third thing is that basically students train their ability to learn. So we foster the skill that is native. And then the fourth thing is that students continue developing their apps after they are done. So if you remember the picture that we showed in the beginning, where students were into their phones, this is how it looks when we do Kahoot during theory lectures, and we kind of make a font too small by accident or not. Then all of them come running towards the screen to figure out what is the correct answer. And I believe this is the guy who won the t-shirt. They continued working on their app after the semester was long gone. And that application involved them working with police, with lawyers, and with a bunch of other things. I have no idea. All of this sounds good on paper. Magnificent course, inspiring students creating applications that don't exist, and so on and so on. But sometimes students are a bit like this. So no matter how we try to facilitate and inspire students to do things and direct them one direction, There's always these Smartypants students who does some things on their own. However, it's not a bad thing. Now the slides won't switch. It's not a bad thing. This is the last slide. It's a picture of Symmetry. Why? We did something what we believe we did, what's called out of the box. And I mentioned courage when I started talking. I would encourage you, go out and do something out of the box and something courageous, because when you are buried 6 feet under, you have all the time in the world to think inside the box. Thank you.
So there are no questions in Slido. So if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand or shout.
Yeah, so you have mentioned that when you hire, as a hiring manager, you're looking for fast learners, right? How exactly can you detect that when a person comes to interview? Because if you would ask, probably majority would just say, yeah, I learn really fast. So how do you distinguish that?
The good example would be, I think we did approximately 3 years ago when React was not that popular. So there were no experienced React developers in the market, and I had to hire a bunch of them. Then what you do, they come in for interview, we talk a bit, you kind of get the initial impression. If that initial impression is thumbs up, you give them home assignment saying, do this app using React, which person hasn't been using previously. And then you can see how fast and what he learned till the next interview.
But if you would hire such a person now, like now 3 years have passed, so how would you detect? Would you ask to use some new I don't know, library for React to test this, or?
Yeah, most likely. Something that is not known by the person, you can easily check that in the first interview. If person knows or doesn't know certain thing, and then you give a home assignment or, yeah. Yes?
You do like ask person to do this kind of thing. Don't many developers just refuse?
This is a very good question, and it comes down to the 5 things that I'm looking for. One of them is ability to learn fast. The other things kind of sum up to a word attitude. So I'm looking for right attitude as well.
Do you have any advice for someone who's going to give the first lecture in university?
An advice for a new lecturer, so to speak. Oh, that's a good. I think it was in one of the slides. Do one brave thing and then run.
I have one piece of advice for that, because I'm in the same situation, which is to bring your own experience, especially that of your own failures. Because my students really appreciate it when I say, yesterday I made this really stupid mistake at work, and then they feel, oh, it's not just us that make those mistakes, but to bring your own experience, and especially your own failures, is what my students appreciated. Anyway.
And basically, only when I became a lecturer in university, I understood that lecturers are also humans.
Yeah.
So
I have a question as well, and a follow-up to that question. Which grade level are you teaching? Which year of their education?
second.
Second. I also teach second year, and I find that most of my students can't go their way out of out of the box. So when I give them an assignment, just getting them to helping them avoiding knocking their heads against a stupid problem for hours or days, like students having problems installing a database, or having problems that they miss just a small typo in the code they don't understand. It's just because at the second level, it's there's a lot of things you don't know.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I can answer that with one example that we are using. Basically, there is no, I would say, golden rule for that, but if you are a coder in real life, what do you do then? Do you usually ask your colleague, or if the colleague doesn't know, you go to Stack Overflow?
I do ask my students to do that, and I have Slack for them as well, so they can actually ask me online for any kinds of problems. But I still find that that giving a big assignment is difficult when they don't know how to actually do small things.
Yeah, well, at least what we did and what works for us, I think pretty good, is we created our own Stack Overflow. So you can create a Q&A page where students can ask other students questions, and you can paste code examples, or you can say that, well, I have really big struggle setting up a database, and then the other people can help, like write instructions, and then everyone else that comes there can see that this problem is already solved. So
I would say the question you're asking is twofold. One, there's technical blockers, but then there's soft side of that question as well. So maybe teaching for patience is also worth thinking.
Yeah, a lot of that is the case, but it's more of a question. I don't dare to give my students very independent tasks, because then they will get into all kinds of problems that they can't get out with, because they're different from the rest of the class.
I think it's an interesting discussion. We would love to talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that your students wouldn't like to be evaluated once they're not in the class, and one of the reasons is high attendance. When you as a manager go to work, maybe you have some people working remotely, have you used some kind of, I don't know, combination of evaluation on a daily basis? How this really works when you're a manager at the company?
No, I don't think I can relate this to work. It's a bit different setup and different context. I think the culture I'm trying to create in my teams is driven by trust a lot, and that takes a long time to build, a lot longer than one semester.
How do you encourage outside the box and thinking?
I think that the first answer that pops to my mind is basically via tasks. So they are not asked to build another Hello World just on steroids.
yeah, and basically when we are presenting those applications, we are giving the information that you saw. So you have to build a price comparison engine, and you can build whatever you like. So then in the end, those applications look a bit more differently, well, one from another, but that's the fun part. So then we start being creative.
Actually, price comparison engine ended up being like 5 final apps, because we have awards for the best apps. 5 apps in the finals were very different in price comparison engine. One of them was based on your traveling route from work to home, where should you stop. Other one was your finance overview. So it's basically your summary of your finances and not so much advisor where to buy and what not to buy. Third was basically a lot of shopping malls are doing a nasty trick where 5 minutes before they close, they bump the price 20%. Then in the morning, they return it back to normal. And then it's a discount of 20%, right? Because math is like that. So students actually did an app to catch liar shopping malls, so to speak. One of the products that they do a lot this on is Sureli.
How many of the projects did actually fail or do not achieve some presentable state? Does that happen?
No. There's just to answer it quickly, you can get an evaluation of 10, which is maximum, even with doing only bare minimum. So it can be Windows Form application, no React, no image recognition, nothing like that. A. B, we kind of work in little sprints, so every week they come in and present a new feature that we discuss in practice lecture. So we give them guidance on, okay, the next week you try to do this. So no matter if features are small or is it outside the box or not, basically there is something being built every week, and then there's no chance that after 16 weeks there's nothing.
Is this the only course that your students are taking this semester, or are they taking multiple courses?
I think they're taking like 8.
How many, David? How many courses do you take in the second year?
6, I think, or 5.
Well, how would it work for you if all of the courses require as much work as that?
It wouldn't work like this. And answering your earlier question, I believe it depends on the student's mindset, because when we are doing the missing people application, we've determined what we want to achieve, and it didn't matter for us how many hours it would take. We had a lot of sleepless nights, and this is what we achieved with that mindset.
Oh, I have some students that are just like that, and then I have some students that are not.
Yeah.
So there's always a bit of a range.
With a bit of note of diversity, we are being asked to wrap this up. So thanks a lot for listening, and thanks a lot for questions.
Thank you.